Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. You ready to learn some cool stuff?
Always.
So today we're going to be looking at breast simulation. And I bet you didn't know there was so much to talk about when it comes to this topic.
Yeah, you might be surprised.
We're going to be focusing mostly on one person's experience, a crossdresser named Gender Benson.
Okay.
They wrote this really interesting article called All Those Options for Breasts. And it's like this chronicle of their journey through all these different ways to create a really convincing silhouette. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I actually read this article, and what I think is so interesting about it is how Jen's personal journey sort of mirrors the way breast simulation technology has evolved over time.
Exactly.
You know, we're going to see everything from DIY ingenuity all the way to modern high-tech options.
Yeah.
It's going to be a fun ride.
Yeah. Jen starts off talking about how they first started experimenting with some pretty basic stuff.
Okay.
We're talking like socks, foam padding, even packing materials.
Right. Makes sense, right?
I have to admit, I've been there. Who hasn't had to improvise a little when it comes to fashion?
I think that resourcefulness that we see with Jen speaks to something bigger, you know?
Yeah.
You look back through history, through different cultures, and you find people have always found ways to get creative with padding or fabrics or even plant fibers to make curves.
Wow.
It's really fascinating.
It's amazing to think that even centuries ago, people were already trying to transform their appearance.
Right.
So, okay, back to Jen's story. They eventually decided to try something a little more, how should I say, unorthodox.
Go on.
Water balloons.
Water balloons. Okay. I did not see that one coming. What was the thinking behind that?
So according to Jen, it was all about trying to get that realistic weight and that feel.
Okay.
You could change the size of the balloons and the water would naturally warm up to their body temperature.
Makes sense.
But get this, if you put the nozzle in just the right spot, you could even make it look like a nipple.
Oh, wow. That's some real creativity. Though I imagine there must have been some drawbacks to using water balloons.
Oh, for sure. Jen talks about how fragile they were.
Yeah.
How they would sag. And of course, there's always that risk of,
a deflation incident.
Yeah, exactly. Not exactly something you want to happen in public.
No, definitely not. And that really highlights why things like durability and reliability are so important when you're talking about breast forms that are meant to be worn, for a while.
Right.
This is a good transition into what Jen explores next, which is pocket bras and breast forms.
Okay, so for anyone who might not know, a pocket bra is basically a bra with these built-in compartments.
Right.
Where you can slip in breast forms.
Yeah.
It could be like a full breast form or a smaller insert, sometimes called a cutlet.
I've heard that.
Or, really any kind of padding you want.
Okay.
So Jen tried some of these out, but it sounds like they weren't totally happy with them.
What didn't they like?
They said they felt kind of unnatural and they tended to move around a lot.
Yeah, that issue of movement, I think, really comes down to the fit of the bra itself.
Okay.
Some of those older pocket bras just didn't have enough support to keep the forms in place.
Right. But Jen does say that they do have their advantages.
Okay, what are those?
They're pretty affordable, easy to use, and a good place to start if you're brand new to breast forms and want to see what it's all about.
Yeah, I can see that they're a good gateway to the fancier options.
Right.
So that brings us to what Jen calls the gold standard, and that's real breast forms.
Okay.
Made from silicone or liquid-filled silicone. This is where you really see the technology coming in, in terms of realism and comfort.
Oh, and Jen is so adamant about this.
Yeah.
They even say in their article, quote, "If I had received the best advice, it would have been, just go for it and buy some good breast forms at the beginning."
Wow. I can see why they feel that way. The level of detail you can find in breast forms these days is incredible. You can find them in a bunch of different shapes and sizes and weights. Some even have adhesive backing.
Oh.
So it's all about finding what works for you and your body.
Exactly. Jen really emphasizes that quality matters more than quantity.
I agree.
It's better to spend a bit more upfront on a good breast form than to constantly be experimenting with cheaper options.
It's like any investment, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's better to spend a little more to get something that's really going to do what you need it to do and last longer instead of constantly having to buy replacements.
Plus, investing in something high quality, you're not just getting a more natural look, but also comfort and peace of mind.
Exactly.
Jen even recommends a specific supplier in the article, thebreastformstore.com, although we're not endorsing them or anything.
Okay.
I just thought it was cool to see Jen get so passionate about finding the right fit.
I get that when you find something that really helps you feel more confident and comfortable, it's only natural to want to tell other people about it.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so let's change gears a bit and talk about something a little more recent when it comes to breast simulation, breastplates, and bodysuits.
Oh, yeah, those have definitely become more popular in recent years.
Right.
They have the potential to create like a really seamless and integrated look.
Yeah.
But like Jen mentions in their article, they also come with some downsides.
Yeah, Jen had mixed feelings about them.
What were the thoughts?
On one hand, they can create a pretty realistic look,
Yeah,
but on the other hand, they can get a bit uh, toasty.
I see.
They also mentioned that they can be hard to use and, how did they put it? Oh, yeah, inhibiting natural activities.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I get that like breathability and comfort can be an issue, especially with those full body suits.
Right.
And then there's the practical stuff, like some things might just be harder to do while you're wearing a breastplate or a bodysuit.
Oh, yeah. Jen even describes feeling like a sweaty mess after struggling into a full bodysuit.
Okay, yeah, I can see how that would happen.
But there are different types of breastplates and bodysuits out there that might solve some of these problems,
Oh, interesting. Like what?
like upper body plates
So,
or false vagina panties,
mm.
which offered like more targeted coverage.
Right, those might offer a better balance between looking realistic and being comfortable.
Exactly. Speaking of options, Jen seemed really struck by just how many different types of breast forms are out there.
It is pretty remarkable, isn't it?
Yeah, they saw it as like proof of just how big and diverse the cross-dressing community is
Yeah.
and how important privacy is for a lot of people.
And I think if we think about it more broadly, it reflects some changes that are happening in society in general.
What do you mean?
Well, we're seeing more and more acceptance and visibility of gender fluidity.
That's true.
And online communities have also been super important for connecting people and creating spaces where people can share information about things like breast forms.
It's amazing how much the internet has changed things,
Yeah,
right?
totally.
So where does all of this leave us?
Mm.
We've seen how people have gone from these early DIY hacks to these high-tech breast forms and even full-body suits. And what's even cooler is that we're just scratching the surface here.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where things go from here.
Me too. But let's pause for a second and recap some of the key takeaways from Jen's journey so far. What were the most important points for you?
Well, I think one of the biggest things that Jen's story shows us is that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to breast simulation. Like, the best option for you really depends on your own needs and preferences and the situations you're going to be wearing them in.
It's like finding the perfect pair of jeans, right?
Yeah, exactly. What works for one person might not work for someone else, and part of figuring it out is trying different things and seeing what feels right.
And speaking of trying things out, another point that Jen makes is that buying good quality breast forms right from the start can actually save you a lot of trouble and money over time.
Right.
It might seem tempting to go for the cheaper options.
Yeah.
But like Jen found out, those don't always look as realistic. They might not be as comfy and they don't always last that long.
Makes sense.
It's like anything else you buy, right? Sometimes spending a bit more upfront gets you something that will do what you need it to do and it'll last longer and you won't have to keep buying new ones.
Totally.
Going back to what we talked about before, the fact that there are so many different types of breast forms out there,
Right.
from basic padding to those high-tech silicone ones, that really shows how diverse the cross-dressing community is.
Yeah.
Everyone has different needs and preferences.
And the fact that this community exists and has all these resources, I think also shows how society is changing.
Right.
Like we were talking about before, people are more accepting of gender fluidity these days, and online communities have played a huge role in providing information and support for people who are figuring out their identities.
That's so true. It's amazing how much the internet has changed things.
It really is.
It makes you wonder what the future holds for breast simulation. I mean, Jen's story focuses on what's available right now, but with technology always changing, who knows what new and even more comfortable options we'll have in a few years.
Imagine materials that perfectly copy the texture and movement of real breast tissue,
That would be incredible.
or 3D printed breast forms that are custom made to fit your exact measurements.
Wow, it's like we've gone from water balloons and socks to potentially having like bio-integrated prosthetics all in one conversation.
It really is fascinating to think about.
And it makes you think about like what these advancements mean for how we see the difference between natural and artificial
Right.
and how it might affect how we think about gender and identity.
That's deep.
I know, right? But before we get too lost in thinking about the future, I think it would be good to bring it back to the present and go over some of the key takeaways from Jen's experience.
Sounds good.
What did you think were the most important points?
Okay, well, I think one of the most important things that Jen's story shows us is that picking breast forms is about way more than just trying to look a certain way.
Yeah.
It's about expressing yourself, exploring who you are, and ultimately feeling good and confident in your own body.
Having the freedom to choose how you present yourself to the world is a really powerful thing.
It really is.
So to all of our listeners, I hope you found this deep dive into Gender Benson's world of breast simulation interesting and thought-provoking.
I know I did.
But as we wrap things up, I want to leave you with one last thing to think about, something that Jen's story made me think about.
Okay, go on.
We've been talking so much about trying to get that realistic look and feel, but what about the emotional side of all of this?
That's such an important thing to think about.
It is.
Because breast simulation isn't just about how you look on the outside.
Exactly.
It's deeply personal and connected to how someone sees themselves and their identity.
It's about using these choices to help people make their outside appearance match their inside sense of self.
And that's powerful.
It really is. And I think as technology keeps getting better, it'll be really cool to see how those emotional and psychological parts of it are explored and addressed more.
It makes you realize that this deep dive has been about so much more than just bras and breast forms.
It really has.
We've been talking about history and technology and what's happening in society and even like the very nature of identity.
That's the best part about deep diving into these topics. You never know where they'll take you or what new things you'll learn.
So true.
And on that note, I want to encourage all of you listening to keep exploring and asking questions and stay curious about this amazing world of knowledge. Until next time, happy diving.
Bye, everyone.